During the first Great Migration of the early 20th century, Black men and women traveled hundreds of miles from the south to the north, some leaving their families and loved ones behind in hopes of better lives and freedom from oppression. This is the story of 4 Black women during the Great Migration who lived and worked as domestics for white families in Philadelphia. Here, these women worked to provide for their families and make new homes. Ella Lee, Lily McKnight, Minnie Whitney, and Beulah Collins talk about finding home in Philadelphia.
I was born in Lee County, Georgia. I lived in Georgia a good many years. We were farmers. When my mother died, she left a crawling baby. And I became a mother for that baby and 2 more children at 8 years old. It taught me how to be independent.
I was born 1902, January 18th, in Shore, Virginia. I worked in the farm with my father. I trucked the farm. When he got up in the morning at 6 o'clock, it started in the field at 6 o'clock, I was right with him.
I was born on the Eastern Shore, Snow Hill, Maryland. I was raised in the country, down on the farm.
One family, about 25 years. My mother was the first one to work there. And after I got old enough, I worked there. And that same girl, my daughter there, I worked there long enough till she got big enough. She worked a little while, but not as long as I did.
Although all 4 women originally hail from the South, they all chose to migrate to Philadelphia between 1919 and 1925 as part of the first Great Migration.
I heard so many people talking about going to Philadelphia. So I got in the notion to go to Philadelphia too. So I told her one day, I said, Miss Mims, I'm going to Philadelphia. Oh, she said, Lily, them Yankees don't want you up there. I said, well, I'm going to find out for myself.
It's never let me, like it was very hard for me to get away. And I was still working on the farm. And I got tired. At that time, I thought that I was a woman. And I couldn't see nothing no more than still going to be on that farm.
I lost my husband real early. He died before the baby was born. And of course, my health got bad. And I had older brothers and sisters, and they said, Beulah, why don't you come to Philadelphia?
Yes, change my mind. All I keep the blues all
The journey north was a risk in itself, a leap of faith.
So in May, one night, my father and we were going to church. So I told my uncle, tell my father that I had gone back home because I had a headache. And my cousin, he helped get one of the fellas that had a fast horse to take me to the station. So see, when my father came up, I went on over here to him. Then he came up, so he went on to church. So he said, my uncle said, where's Minnie? So he said, she went back home, so she said she had a headache. Well, when he was leaving at the yard, he heard the train blowing at Parksley. But then they know was nowhere else to get headed off. They just call it quits. Well, I said if they come there, they wouldn't have found me anyway, because when the train pulled into Parksley, I went into the ladies' room and stayed there until the train pulled off. So, because if anybody at that time would get on the train, they wasn't allowed to go in the ladies' room, if they're looking for somebody. So I got on just like any ordinary person. So I come to Pocomoke. That was the city in Pocomoke, Maryland. So then the next day I caught the 1 o'clock train and come on up here to Philadelphia to my cousin.
Training, come on up here. That's nerve, isn't it?
They have a party at noon, a party at night. The midnight parties don't ever break up.
Once in Philadelphia, the women faced new challenges.
I came in September by the time school opened. And I put the 3 children in school, and I went to the principal of the school. And I told him that I just came from the South, and I didn't know anything about any kind of work except domestic work. And when it come down to cooking, Laundry and I borrowed nobody, but that was all I knew. And he looked at me and said, all right, I'm very little lady that my children was in her class, lived out on 69th Street. She says, all right, if I hear tell of anything, I'll let you know. I said, thank you. So she did. Went on from that, and I worked for one family.
I went on to the employment office and got myself a job because I know I had a responsibility.
Then I wrote home and told my parents that I was in Philadelphia, but please don't try to find me because I would not come back home.
I received my company in the rear. Still these folks don't want to see them here. Gonna
To provide for their families, all 4 women worked in the homes of white families.
Life was pretty easy. White collar, apron on, get dressed and get ready and serve dinner. I guess I got downstairs maybe about 7:30. The walk had to be swept first, though, and sweep off the porch and come in and get dinner, breakfast. We had to squeeze orange juice, though. Had to be fresh oranges, not this water orange juice. All the bed linen and everything went out. But I had to do the housework.
Yeah, I remember I had to get used to her ways. And she did the cooking, I didn't cook. I just kept house and kept the children and clean.
I worked for a woman out in Winfield, and she had me out on the roof. She had the porch, and then she had these windows come out on the porch, right out on the roof. She put me out there, and as I wiped the windows, they were sticking to the window. It was freezing. So I stayed there with that woman for 3 years, which the employment agency, I got that from the employment office. And when I taken the job, she says, I'm going to give you this job. She said, but you're not going to stay with the woman. I said, why? She said, nobody can stay with her. You work for her, so she's just that type. So I says, all right. I said, give it to me. I'll try it.
Just said work for one family. I washed for a couple of families. When they hired me for $5 a week, that was a lot of money in Philadelphia. That's right. People said they were paying a lot of big wages here, but that's not true. When I came here in 29, people wasn't getting a lot of pay. Oh, I didn't get a lot, and I know others didn't get a lot, but I managed to survive. On and on, little by little. They raised me from $5 from the first couple of weeks to 10. Let me tell you, honey, a colored person is tough with you if you ain't got nothing to go up on anywhere you go. I find it to be that way. If you got money and got somebody to help you, it's all right.
I think when I first went there, Mrs. Richard paid me $13, and that was big money, $13 a week. And that was big money. A week. I think the white thought they were better than the color. And yet, they want us to work for them. But you ain't too black to work for them. You ain't too black to get down there and scrub their kitchen, wash their dishes. But you're too black. Was just something about that black skin. And they don't consider God made us whole. So she told me that Sunday morning she wanted me to scrub the bathroom. And I had did it on Saturday. I told her, I says, I don't scrub nobody's floor on Sunday. I said, that's my Sabbath. But now the slavery is over. Why should you still have to be present? I mean, we all is one. It's no difference, it's only the difference in the skin. Why do I have to do something that I don't want to do on a Sunday? And one time, this lady I told you about that I worked in Winfield for, she had 2 daughters, so I have to chaperone those girls. So they was going to a show one night down on Walnut Street, I think it was. And they went up and I was with them. So when they get to the booth for to buy the tickets, so they asked for 3 tickets. So the lady in the booth told us, so, well, she can't sit with you. She'll have to sit upstairs. So they say, oh, no. Say, if she don't sit with us, we don't go in the theater. So she let them know that, I was a nigger. And
No niggas wasn't allowed to sit downstairs. So they said, well, I'll talk to my father about that, and I'll let you know. My father will take his business from you. They let me go in and sit that night, but I could feel the daggers at me.
In the South, you're more closer to the white people than you are up here. If they're for you, they may not pay enough money, but if they're for you, they're for you. Up here, they pretend they're for you, but some of them isn't for you.
They give me just what they think I'm worth. I'm gonna change my mind. Yes, change my mind.
These women managed to take care of 2 families at once, tending to their employers and their own children.
I didn't take my baby with him, but I put him in a nursing home where some other children were with a colored family, and she took care of children, took care of babies, and she would send him to school. And I felt pretty well satisfied because he was there with those boys and girls. Almost all the help had Thursdays off. And my days off, I would go there with Mom Taylor where my boy was. Eat my lunch and spend my time there. I never paid for a room. When I had any time off, I'd just give it to my boy.
So she took care of my children, and I'd be there every Thursday and every other Sunday. I felt pretty good because they went to school here, and they went to church here, and I felt pretty good over here.
My husband and I, we broke up. Then I took my baby to my mother in the South. My kids was, my mother had one, and his sister had the other because we went to court for the kids. And the court would only grant me the boy, wouldn't let me have both of them, and he's the girl. But I see my daughter every week because I stayed here until she was a good-sized girl. And my son, he was home with my mother. And I always send them clothes. They kept in touch with her. I wrote to them every week.
Years after working in the North, the women reflected on one question. Would they have returned to the South?
I'd have stayed in the South because I hadn't built it myself. My hand to my Heavenly Father. If I would have had to give up what little bit I had in the South and came north, I would have stayed there because I was doing just as good. And my people that's there is doing just as good.
I wouldn't want to go back and live down on the farm no more and raise chickens and cows and things like that. I could have gone down there and stayed, but I didn't want to. I wanted to stay up here where my baby could have a better education.
You see, when you don't know no better, you accept it. But after I left home and I went to New York and I went back home, I couldn't accept those things. That's why I would never go back.
Ultimately, the women had mixed feelings on their lives as domestic workers as they made a home in Philadelphia.
Don't have anything to regret because what I did did it with honest heart. And the ones I was employed with, I tried to please them, and they seemed to be satisfied with me. So when you're satisfied with me, that makes me satisfied with you. What I got to do.
I had a pretty good time because I always know how to work. When you know how to work, you can get a job. And if they like you and you like them, they like somebody to be humble, kind, and a little bit of manners. Not no fresh somebody, and I never was fresh.
If I could have turned around, could have turned around and went back when I got here, I'd have turned around and went back. I walked when I came here until I almost lost my mind trying to get a job. There's some good people and there's some bad people, there's some nice people and there's some ignorant people just like me. Everywhere you go. Okay, where you go, you're going to find some ignorant people, some sensible people, some good people, and some bad people, ain't you?
Yes, change my mind.